Before the roads were paved, before the cities rose, before the world learned to move fast and forget to be still, there was a village. And in that village there was a woman. Not a queen, not a warrior, not a woman of wealth or title. But when the elders had no answer, they walked to her door. When the young were lost, they sat at her feet. When the rains refused to come and the harvest turned to dust, her name was the first name spoken. Her name was Adaeze. And this is her story. Gather close. The fire is lit, and the night is long enough for truth. In the heart of the land, nestled between two ancient hills and a river that sang different songs depending on the season, sat the village of Kara. It was not the largest village, not the richest, but it was known throughout the surrounding lands for one thing above all else: its people endured. Drought came, Kara endured. Conflict came, Kara endured. Strange seasons, difficult harvests, and the deaths of beloved chiefs, Kara endured. And the elders, when asked by visitors from distant lands how a small village survived what greater ones could not, always gave the same answer. They would smile slowly, and they would say, "We have Adaeze." Nobody remembered exactly how old Adaeze was. Some said she had been old since they were children. Others said she had been young once, deeply, beautifully young, and that life had simply filled her up so completely that age became irrelevant. She lived at the edge of the village, where the baobab trees grew thick and the soil was dark and rich. Her compound was small. A modest home, a fire pit, a garden of herbs whose names only she knew fully, and a wooden stool outside her door that was worn smooth from the years of people sitting on it to speak with her. She had no husband now. He had passed many reigns ago, a good man, people said, who had loved her deeply and laughed loudly and left too soon. She had children and grandchildren, but the village had become her largest family. She woke before the sun, sat with the morning in silence, and listened. That was the first thing people noticed about Adaeze. She listened in a way that made you feel like the most important person in the world. Not because she flattered you, not because she agreed with everything you said, but because she was fully present. Her eyes did not wander. Her mind did not race ahead to her response. She simply received you completely. And somehow, in being fully heard, people often found their own answers before she even spoke a word. In the dry season of Adaeze's 73rd year, a drought came to Kara unlike any the living could remember. The river shrank to a whisper. The crops cracked in the ground. The livestock grew thin. Children, who had been round cheap and laughing, became quiet. And with hunger came something more dangerous than hunger: division. The farmers blamed the herders for taking too much water for their cattle. The herders blamed the farmers for blocking the river paths with their irrigation channels. The young men grew hot with anger. The women argued at the well. The elders met every evening and left every evening without agreement. Kara, the village that had always endured, began to crack from the inside. One evening, a young elder named Kofi came to Adaeze's door. He was 30-5, educated, ambitious. He had new ideas about water management he'd learned from traders who came from the north. He sat on the worn stool and said, "Adaeze, the village is breaking. I have a plan that can save us, but the old men will not listen. They say my ways are foreign. They say I have forgotten who we are. Tell me who is right." Adaeze poured him water from the small amount she had. He noticed she gave him more than she kept for herself. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she asked, "Kofi, when your mother cooked, did she use only one ingredient?" He frowned. "No." "And was the meal worse for having many?" He was quiet. She continued, "Your ideas are not wrong. The elder's wisdom is not wrong. A fire built with only new wood burns fast and dies fast. A fire built with only old wood is slow to start. But a fire built with both, she gestured to her fire pit burning steady and warm. That fire lasts through the night. The next morning, Adaeze did something she had never done. She walked into the center of the village herself. Not summoned. Not asked. She simply came slowly, with her walking stick, and her wrapper tied firmly and her eyes clear and calm. Word spread in minutes. When Adaeze walked to the center, you came. By the time she reached the great tree in the middle of the village, farmers and herders and elders and young men and women with children on their backs had all gathered. She stood. She did not raise her voice. She never needed to. She said, "I am going to tell you a story." The village went still. Once, two hands belonging to the same body began to argue. The right hand said, "I do more work." The left hand said, "I carry more weight." They argued so deeply that they forgot they were attached to the same body. And while they argued, the body grew weak. The food went unpicked. The water went uncarried. And both hands, right and left, went hungry together. Silence. Then she looked at the farmers. Then the herders. Then Kofi. Then the oldest elder, a man named Adaeze, who had resisted every new idea for 30 years. She said, "You are not two villages. You are two hands." And Krara is the body. Adaeze, who had not wept publicly in 40 years, looked away and blinked hard. What followed was not a miracle. It was something better. It was work done together. Kofi presented his water channeling system. The elders contributed knowledge of the land's underground streams, knowledge passed down through generations that no trader from the north could have known. The farmers adjusted their irrigation. The herders moved their cattle rotation. Within 3 weeks, water that had been wasted through division was now shared through cooperation. The river did not return fully that season. The drought was not broken by wisdom alone. Nature kept its own timeline. But the people of Krara did not starve. They rationed together. They shared together. They sat around fires that had been on opposite sides of the village for months. And when the rains finally came, full and generous and long, the whole village stood in it together. Through all of this, a young girl named Sira had been watching Adaeze. Sira was 11. Quick-minded, always asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. Her own grandmother often told her, "You talk too much and listen too little." After the rains came, Sira walked to Adaeze's compound and sat on the worn stool without being invited. Adaeze looked at her with something close to amusement. Sira said, "How do you know what to say? How do you always know?" Adaeze sat down across from her slowly. "I don't always know," she said. Sira looked surprised. "But you never seem lost." "Being lost and looking lost are different things," Adaeze said. "When I don't know, I go quiet. And in the quiet, something always comes. Not always quickly. Not always in the way I expect. But it comes." Sira thought about this. Then asked, "Can anyone learn that?" Adaeze looked at her for a long moment. At the bright eyes. The restless hands. The mind that was already moving in 3 directions at once. "You already know how to ask the right questions," Adaeze said softly. "Now learn how to sit with them before you demand the answers." Sira didn't fully understand it then, but she never forgot it. Adaeze lived many more seasons after that drought. She guided the village through 2 more conflicts, a succession dispute when the chief died, and the arrival of outside merchants who came with smooth words and complicated contracts. Every time, she did not fight loudly. She simply helped people see. When she finally passed quietly, in her sleep, in the dry season of her 89th year. The village did not only mourn. They gathered at the great tree. And one by one people stood up and told a story. Not about what Adaeze had done for them, but about what she had helped them see in themselves. Kofi spoke. Baba Sul spoke, and this time he did weep openly, without looking away. And a young woman stood up last, Sira, now 22. A teacher in the village school. A woman the young children were already beginning to go to with their questions. She said only this: she taught me that wisdom is not about having all the answers. It is about creating the space where answers can be found. The village was silent. Then someone began to hum an old song, without words. And one by one, every voice joined. In our world today, loud, fast, always rushing toward the next thing, the story of Adaeze asks us something quietly. When did you last truly listen? Not to respond. Not to fix. Not to be right. But to simply receive another person, fully, completely, without condition. Adaeze never held a title, never sat on a throne, never commanded an army. But she held an entire village together with nothing more than presence, patience, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from a life genuinely lived. There is an Adaeze in every community, in every family. Sometimes they are old. Sometimes they are younger than you expect. But you will always know them by this: when they listen to you, you feel seen. And when they speak, the room goes still. Honor those people. Learn from them. And perhaps become one. The fire burns as long as we keep feeding it. This has been your African folktale for today. Until next time, listen more, speak less, and never forget where you come from. Thanks for watching.